The 3 Elven Rings of Power and their bearers. Hello, and welcome back to another video from Secrets of the Rings. Today we take a look into the past, peeking into the works of one of the greatest craftsmen and leaders of Middle-earth, as well as the legacy of carrying the most important of magical artifacts, the 3 Elven Rings of Power. In the world of Middle-earth, the Elves were among the most ancient and powerful of the races. They were skilled in many arts and crafts, including the forging of magical objects of great power. Their artifacts were notable for their unique and powerful properties, such as mithril garments that could endure the mightiest of strikes, blades that could pierce the armor of the deadliest of foes, and rings that could grant powers beyond the dreams of kings and sorcerers. The bearers of such artifacts would come to play a crucial role in the events of the Third Age of Middle-earth. According to records from the Unfinished Tales, it was from Anatar, later discovered to be Sauron, then disguised as a benevolent lord of gifts, that the knowledge of magical rings was shared with the Elves from the Gwaith y Myrdain, also known as the People of the Jewelsmiths, a group of elven smiths led by Celebrimbor in Eregion. Although Sauron was known for his cunning, the 3 rings were forged in secret, and their creation was shrouded in mystery, without any direct influence from him, never being tainted by his accursed touch. Celebrimbor was the chief smith, and he designed the 3 great rings to be linked with parts of the world, related to understanding, making, and healing. The rings were also imbued with powers to preserve its surroundings against the passage of time, such as the affinity of the elves to endure immortality. Nenya, also known as the Ring of Adamant or the Ring of Water, was made of mithril with a stone of adamant. It was the chief of 3, originally worn, and indeed only ever worn, by Galadriel. Nenya's power granted its bearer to ward off evil and preserve things against decay. Such powers were used primarily to build and fortify what became known as Lothlorien, the main kingdom of the Sylvan Elves. Lady Galadriel was a descendant of the Noldor, daughter of Finarfin, and sister to Finrod Felagund, later king of Nargothrond, and was known for her wisdom, magical prowess, and beautiful golden hair, which resembled the light of the 2 trees of Valinor. Born in the immortal lands of Eldamar during the time of the 2 trees, she was from an epoch when the elves were naturally imbued with more power and nobility than their later generations. She is also known to witness all 3 ages, having endured the main events such as the kinslaying, the war against Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, and Sauron's War of the Ring later on. She is regarded to be amongst the most powerful beings in Middle-earth at her peak power until her return to the immortal lands of Aman after the destruction of the One Ring late in the Third Age. Narya, also known as the Ring of Fire or the Red Ring, was set with a ruby, originally worn by Círdan, the shipmaster. Narya gave its bearer the power to inspire and motivate others. Círdan was one of the highest and most noble of the Sindar, even before being gifted the ring by Celebrimbor, and albeit powerful, Círdan had duties with his kin, as he was Lord of the Falas during the First Age, and Master of the Grey Havens through the Second, Third, and Fourth Age. For this, during his meeting with the newly arrived Istari, better known as wizards, during the Third Age, he decided to grant Narya to Gandalf the Grey, as Círdan considered him to be the wisest of the wizards encountered on the occasion. Gandalf was known to utilize the ring to guide, inspire, and motivate diverse races and cultures during his journeys across Middle-earth, having befriended kings, lords, nobles, and other common folk across the land. Always seeking information regarding the whereabouts of the Dark Lord and his plans, Narya was of great value to Gandalf to increase the chances for his ultimate success in this mission, after great cost during the Third Age. Even at great odds, Gandalf the Grey managed to surpass his fears against the Balrog in Moria and to grant passage to the Fellowship to continue its goal to destroy the One Ring. Other meaningful deeds include the confrontation against Saruman the White, the confrontation of the Nazgûl in Minas Tirith, the expedition to the dark fortress of Dol Guldur, and various other encounters against enemies with greater odds than himself. After his demise against the Balrog in Moria, he was resurrected and robed in white, becoming Gandalf the White. Gandalf was also amongst the most powerful beings in Middle-earth, as he was not only immortal like elves, but also a Maya, a spirit made before the creation of the world itself. He was known as the wisest Maya, having spent time during his youth with Valar, beings of immense power, akin to living gods in the world. He served under Manwë, Varda, Irmo, and Nenya, and his association was primarily light and fire. Lastly, Vilya, also known as the Ring of Sapphire, the Blue Ring, or the Ring of Air, was a ring of gold with a sapphire stone, originally worn by Gil-galad, but inherited by Elrond, the Lord of Imladris, also known as Rivendell in the common tongue. According to the unfinished tales, Gil-galad was first granted both Vilya and Narya, but he decided to grant the first to Círdan and the other to Elrond, as he recognized the wisdom and pure spirit of both. The ring initially granted to the High King the power to heal and to preserve things against the ravages of time, which was used to protect and fortify Imladris against the forces of evil after Elrond was chosen and sent to hold the region for the Elves. Regarding the deeds of Gil-galad, he was mainly responsible for leading the migration of his people after the fall of Nargothrond against Morgoth's forces in the First Age, bringing with him Círdan, Celeborn, and Galadriel, and a large number of Sindar and other elves. During the War of the Last Alliance, it was Círdan, Elrond, Isildur, Anarion, Elendil, and Gil-galad that stood the most courageous, mighty in valor, and righteous in spirit to siege Sauron's forces at Mordor. With those qualifications, when they stood united, they were able to withstand the most horrific creature any would face. Sauron, a fallen Maya, from the same origin as Gandalf, but stronger, one of the strongest of the fallen. But it was not simply a matter of power, or any kind of inherent magical ability they had, but it was the purity of their hearts and the righteousness of their cause and the courage of their souls that gave them the strength to face and defeat Sauron. But the cost in lives was disastrous, and it was said that it was by the hand of Sauron, with the heat of his hand, that Gil-galad perished in battle. After the demise of Gil-galad at the final battle with Sauron, Elrond was known for using the powers granted by the ring to enhance his own powers of foresight, while also preserving and protecting the lands of Imladris. He also used his healing powers on various occasions. One of the most notable, during the Fellowship of the Ring, when Frodo is brought to him with a mortal wound from a Nazgul blade. And with his healing powers, Elrond manages to stop the curse that would make Frodo become a wraith. It is worth mentioning that after Sauron had forged his one ring, the Elven ring-bearers could not directly use their rings, as that would make them susceptible to the influence and control of the One Ring. All rings of power were created using knowledge from Sauron, from the time he was disguised and acted as an alleged emissary of the Valar in Eregion, to hide his true intentions. Therefore, because of this indirect but ever-present influence, only after Sauron's defeat at the hands of the Last Alliance were the three able to wear and use the full power of their rings again. After the destruction of the One Ring, the powers of the three Elvish rings were diminished and became relics, losing their power to preserve, heal, or inspire, marking the end of the Age of the Elves and the beginning of the Age of Men.